Right, let's see when it pops on. Okay, there it is on Instagram. Why don't I see it on mine? Because I put it in there, right? You see me on there. Oh, there he is. Boom, shakalaka. All right.
All right, Mark, let's get started.
Oh, shit. Boom, shakalaka. Can't forget to turn this shit off. All right. What up, what up, what up? Happy mother loving. What's today? Tuesday? Monday. Right? I get my days mixed up. But welcome to another episode. Actually, the first episode of 2025 for Brown and Spiritual AF. You know, today me and Isela are going to talk about spiritual burnout and escaping the hustle of healing. You know what I mean? I know it sounds a little crazy that we just had one, right? That was talking about burnout culture or the hustle culture. And this one segues kind of right into that. So when I say things of that nature, if I say spiritual burnout and escaping the hustle of healing, what comes to mind for you, Missy Sella?
What comes to mind? I think it's a very natural experience for people when they start to have an awareness of something that I think for most of us is different than the way that they've been raised to believe about things. So if you were raised from a religious background or if there are very clear understanding of even who we are, like who we are in this world and why we came here and what the experience of life is supposed to be like. And when you start to get an understanding that there could be different ideas, there could be different reasons, there could be something outside of what you grew up believing in. I think if that excites you, I think what happens is there's a little bit that resonates within us and we get super excited by it. And some of us just want to get as much information as we possibly can all at one time. That's what I think of when I think of spiritual burnout. What do you think of, Mark?
Yes, it's that. It's that. I know when I first stepped into this realm because it was something different. You know what I mean? It was like, oh my gosh, I never read a book until I got into personal development. And then once I got into personal development, I was like, why didn't anybody introduce me to this shit? And then I just went crazy. And it was one book after another book. And sometimes I wouldn't even finish a book and I'd be starting another one. I'm like soaking in all this stuff. And I just kind of just like I would do at work. You know what I mean? I just kind of just dove right in and said, "His balls to the wall. I got to get as much as I can, as fast as I can." And before you know it, I was like overwhelmed,
Mhm.
because I think this movement is really, I think a lot of people have stepped into this realm a lot more recently than in the past years. And so with the technology and all the, I watched you a lot this week already, and we're only on fucking what, Monday. You know what I mean?
I
And that
watched you more times on Monday.
yeah, yeah, and then I was on your live earlier. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, we'll talk about this later, and so the amount of information, the amount of information that's out there is overwhelming, and you could get stuck on TikTok just watching fucking spiritual videos, learning, and
Yeah.
that's what happened with me because when I came into this platform called Mind Valley, and that's what helped me get to where I kind of am right now, and they have this platform where you get to watch these quests and their courses. And I was like, oh, I take one. And I was like, you know what? I could take three. And before you know it, I was like, oh my gosh, I got so many open. I'm getting overwhelmed that I didn't even want to do it anymore because I was
Mhm.
burnt out on it. And it's
Mhm.
like, well, how the fuck do you get burnt out on personal development stuff? It's like, well, because I brought the same mentality that I was
Mhm.
using in the hustle and bustle culture while working my ass off and trying to get this mother loving money. I brought that into my spirituality.
Mhm.
Has that happened to you?
Yeah, I'm actually on mine. I can't even tell you. I am on Mind Valley. I got like 5, 6 different apps. I've got just surrounding me just by my desk. I've got about 8 books, not to mention the books that I have behind me. But that's a little bit about how I'm made up too. I've got ADHD. So whenever I get an interest in anything, I dive in 1000%. I hyper focus, and I have always functioned that way, and I like that about myself. I used to like the go, okay, I need to like balance things out. I actually take advantage of the fact that I can read a book in 2 days. Like I love that I can do that. But I think the danger, I don't know if the word is danger. I think we just get so consumed by it all that we don't let our brain and our body just make sense of it all. We don't spend time for integration. We don't, it just stays in the intellectual understanding of things. And there's a difference between knowing something at the intellectual level and actually embodying the experience. It's like the folks who talk the talk and they preach it, but they don't live it.
Yes, I totally get that. There's a difference between understanding and learning what it is, but actually implementing it.
Right.
And you talked about this a lot with me with my healing of my relationships, romantic ones in
Yeah.
particular. And you're like, Mark, you can sit here and read all the motherfucking books you want, but the way you're going to know if you've grown in this area is if you actually go get in a romantic relationship. It's like,
Right.
what? I have to actually do this in order to know if I've grown or not? You're fucking crazy. No, I also want to wait till I get it right. I'm going to read a million books on this until I get it right. Well, you can't. You only grow through what you go through, And so I get that. And you're like, I listened to you talk about how I like to soak in all the information because I like to think I want to know what I'm doing before I actually do it. But the most times that I've ever learned something the most is when I just did it. I just went out and did it. You know what I mean? I didn't learn playing basketball by reading a bunch of books on it. No, we went out onto the court and we played every single day with people that were better than us. So it makes sense, even though it still is scary to me when you say, Mark, go get in a relationship. That's how you're going to figure this out.
That's how you're going to learn. Yeah. Well, what happens is we gather information, and that's the first level of awareness, is to gather the information. Like, I know 101 ways to disinfect my house. I know lots of ways. I can tell you about it. But do I use the 101 ways to disinfect my house? No, I use 3 ways. That's all I do.
How many came from your grandma?
Right?
Yeah.
And so we have these things, this gathering of information that I think is a natural part of the process, because you don't know what you don't know, right? So picking up a book, watching a video. My husband spends a lot of time. He's been playing basketball his whole life, still plays basketball. I can't tell you how many hours he put into watching videos on form and and then we would go to the basketball court. This was before we had a kid, when I actually used to go play with him and practice and stuff. And we would watch all these videos on just form and how you actually release the ball. And then he would go out there. And the thing with my husband, because he's only 5'9", he plays with guys that are 6 foot on up. His closest friends are like 6'8", 6'7". And so he's a small guy. So one of the things that he got into the habit of is bringing his arm all the way back instead of just releasing from here. And so he'd watch these videos. He'd go out there and he still goes in the game. He's still pulling back. And I said, well, you're making yourself available to that shot being blocked, because it's too much time that you're pulling back and they can easily block your shot. And so it took unlearning that. But for him, the way that he processes and learns, he has to watch it. And then when he went out, we had to then intentionally practice the process, because there was an unlearning that had to happen too. And so I think what's most important about all of this is figuring out what works for you. What works for you? And for some of us, we delve deep for 5 weeks, and then we got to step back. And then we just got to go, okay, brain and body, I need to kind of just absorb and integrate. What does this mean now in my life? What am I going to do with this information? And sometimes the best way is just to simply learn to be with it. Be with it. Be with the discomfort of it. Be with the new ideas. Be open and curious. Just be with the information.
Were you on the sidelines like, hey, you're holding on too long. Let that shit go already.
I actually had to record him. We would watch it.
So you just kind of answered the question that I wanted to ask. It was like, how do you escape the hustle and reconnect with the true essence of healing? And it's one of those things where, for me, I ask myself sometimes, because there's a lot of things I want to learn all at once, right? So I think to myself, well, I'm reading a book on spirituality. And then over here, I'm reading a book on business. And then over here, I'm reading a book on Instagram and the platform. And then over here, it's like, holy shit. So I'm like, I'm really not learning that much. They're all separate, but
Mhm.
how do I implement and where do I move forward? And when do I tell myself, hey, relax, slow down, get this one thing done? Because for me, I notice it's like working in the restaurant. I have a system that's in place and I
Right.
follow that system. And why don't I implement that system that I utilize in the restaurant business to make sure that I get the things that I want to get done in my spiritual journey, in my emotional journey, right? In my mental journey? Because I do got a great system that works well. It helps. I'm able to harmonize my time properly and divide it up in a way that's going to make the best out of the moments that I have,
Mhm.
but I just don't follow that same rules when I get out into my own personal stuff.
Mhm. Well, that's because there's a huge emotional attachment to our patterns that we have, lived with our entire lives. What I do, I'm like you. I'm going to show you kind of my process. So, like, I have a big journal. See, like a really big one, like a
Yeah.
huge book. And what I do is I actually put everything out on Post-it notes. And
Nice.
so what I do is as I do things, I move the post-it notes. So I do what I call a data dump. So this could be for anything. This could be information. So if I've read a book, I've watched a video, I've taken a workshop, I've done whatever, I do a brain dump. I just everything I remember, that put it on post-it notes. And then I put it down, I look at it, I group together and go, okay, what does this mean for me? So this chunk right here, I'm going to focus on whatever. Maybe it's an implementation strategy. Okay. So I'm going to focus on that. This chunk here is about how I'm feeling about the experience. And so I chunk it out and then I identify just one or two steps or strategies for it. And then I put it on my post-it notes in my book. And as I'm doing them or as I'm working on them, I pull it out of my book and put it right in front of me. And so it's like I move it from this theoretical understanding, this intention I'm setting forward, and now I'm putting it in front of me. So I have a visual reminder of the thing that I was going to work on, implement, be with, whatever my strategy is to integrate it. And then I do a checks and balance for myself. Okay, am I really living the thing that I had set intention to live? Like, am I really doing it? Because we can all sit in the space of good intentions. We can all sit in the space of good intentions and knowing better because we all know better, right?
Yes.
It's how do we embody it? How do we live it? And so for me, visual reminders have always helped me. God, I remember even in the very beginning of my spiritual journey, I used to put post-it notes and little messages to myself on my mirror in my bathroom. And that those visual reminders to this day, I still use that strategy because for me, it works. The key is to figure out what works for you and to stay consistent at utilizing those strategies. So I take a post-it note. So like, course forgiveness video script, that's something that I wanted, one of my to-dos for the things that I was kind of data dumping. I put it in front of me and that's what I'm going to focus on. And this is a to-do thing as opposed to an implementation thing, but it's the same strategy.
I like that you said intentions, because a lot of people set intentions a lot and they think setting the intention is enough. Like, I intend to get better at my scheduling. I intend to get better at how I'm going to learn something and then implement it. I intend to go learn something and give myself a break. You know what I mean? Go have some fun, go run around, go do some other thing, get into my creative juices. However, my intention is not enough.
Right.
Actually putting the plan into play and actually following through is what's going to get this shit to happen, And I think, like, when you look at Instagram, when you look at the world, you look at people that are in the healing area, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
different ways, man. There's health, there's mental states, right? There's your emotional state, there's your spiritual state. I think a lot of it has to do with why we get so, oh my gosh, the next best thing is because there's so much data out there. There's so many. Yeah, I get, how many things pop up on my shit every day. Go take this course, okay, take this course, take this
Yep.
course. And before you're learning this one, then a whole new thing is out. And we get out of the basics sometime. I think people think they need that next best thing. It's like, wait a minute, I haven't even mastered this one little thing that I've been doing for like 3 years yet. And I want to go and tackle all these other things. It's like we try to go heal bigger things when we haven't even healed the little stuff. And
Mhm.
you think that the way the spirituality community is out there, and because of the way people market and because of the consumerism, has that had to do with this consumerism in the spirituality zone also?
Well, yeah, of course, there's consumerism and everything, right? But I think, let me tell you what I think about this. I think ego,
Ooh.
okay, so ego, acronym edging God out, which is there's nothing wrong with the separation from source. It's the belief that we're independent of source is what gets us in trouble. And the ego keeps us in the hamster wheel. And so the ego keeps us thinking that we need more help, we need more guidance, we need more classes, we need more workshops. And so we're in this perpetual state of seeking outside ourselves for the answers. And I, this happens to me too, because I get excited about new ideas. I get excited about new, a different angle or perspective. Like I get excited about those things. But in truth, like if I would have sat with myself, I mean, there is some level of getting more information, but to sit with myself and really explore that within through meditation, through quiet contemplation, through my own journaling process, even just getting grounded in nature and just connecting to Gaia, to Mother Earth. It's like these are all ways that we can kind of delve deeper and get a better understanding of ourselves. And it's within ourselves that we have so many more answers than we ever like give ourselves credit for. And so we're out there, seeking information in this constant state. And that's just the hamster wheel, because the ego never learns. We learn at the level of truth, not at the ego level.
Can you touch a little more on that? Because I think somebody's hear that like me right now is like, wait a minute, hold on. What does that mean a little bit more?
So the ego, which is the idea of separation, it's the separation that we are independent from source, that we are this entity over here. I am Isela outside of consciousness. I am independent of God, consciousness, universe, whatever you want to call the all that is. The ego never actually learns anything. It stays in a perpetual place of discover, or wanting to discover, wanting to know more, it never really learns. Our learning comes from our connection to source. Our learning comes, and even creativity. Like when you make music, Mark, when you allow yourself, I'm going to say this and you're going to know what I'm saying. When you are in the flow, and it's just coming. The words are coming. You can probably hear the music in your head. When you're in that space of just creating, that's you co-creating with source. And if you get really, really good at it, what you're actually doing is moving over so source can work through you. Okay. But where we struggle is when we're in our ego state, this intellectual understanding of the world and that we're independent of source, we want to create from a place of our own persona. And we can to some degree, but the ego keeps us in a perpetual state of wanting, needing, and seeking. But the key isn't to stay in that perpetual state, because we're always going to seek and we're always going to think we're not enough. It's when we get to the state of allowing, surrendering, that we can then connect to source. And that's where the integration comes into play, because we got the information. Hey, thank you, ego, for going and collecting all the information. I got it from here. And now I'm going to trust source to help me integrate the information I've gathered. So now that I can embody it and remember that I already knew this.
Yeah, that is really interesting, because I think about all the stuff that I've collected over the years, and like just even like apps and things that are helping me to get a little more. Like today, I had to. I'm creating my own. I'm creating another podcast, Sundays in the Shadows, right? Because I want to go more deeper into these types of things with people, and I have a lot of different apps, and I didn't realize, like, holy smokes, I got 20 million apps because I was like, these are all going to help me. But then not realizing, not paying attention, not slowing down enough to say, wait a minute, which ones have similar attributes to them? And am I overworking myself by not taking the time to slow down and look at what's helping me, what's not? And if I could get rid of 2 or 3 of them that are costing me, right? I had to make an investment of $10, $20, $30 of each one of these, when one of them could do a bulk of the work. Why am
Right.
I doing this? And I thought to myself, like, oh my gosh, I think I do this in my learning also, right? I'm over here saying, I want to learn this technique and I want to learn that technique and I want to learn this over here and I'm following this guru, blah, blah, blah. This one, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. If I slow down and look at one, they all touch on very similar things.
Mm.
The process is just a little bit different. So in reality, if I wanted to, I could find one, see how they match up with the other ones, get rid of these ones and focus right here until I'm ready to move on to the next one. But it's the ego I'm hearing that keeps you wanting to say, I need it all from all these people at all times because that's the only way we're going to be able to grow. But through the process of that, it's stopping me from actually growing.
Yeah. Yeah. We
You know?
stay in that perpetual hamster wheel. I do the same thing. I'll see a thing that'll show up on my feed that will be like, this is easier because you only need to do this and this and this. And I was like, okay, bye now.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You're like, buy now. And then you're like, wait a minute. I think I bought something like that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like, did I do that? I think, and it's just because now information is just so readily available to us. Like opportunities like that is really just a click of a button, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think there are lots of things at play. I think the hard thing in terms of integrating information that we've gathered is that I don't know that we've ever, at least for myself, I'm going to speak for myself. I went through the educational system. I was in school for a very, very long time. But I don't think that anyone ever really taught me. It was something I had to learn from others, just kind of haphazardly, how to just be with new information. Like, when I would learn something from a teacher, when I first started this spiritual journey, I would get really, really excited about things, but I didn't know how to take it from the knowing piece to the actually being piece. And so I had to kind of create a system for myself of these reflective questions. Like, now that I know this to be true, at least true for me right now, because it may evolve, what does this mean in my day-to-day experience? What does this mean when I interact with friends? What does this mean when I interact with my husband? Like, what does this look like in practice? What does this feel like? And at the same time, we have this emotional center and in our limbic system that's fighting our desire to change. It's, no, you want to stay the way that you've always been because it's the way it protects us, right? It protects us, and so it's a good thing, but it's what prevents us from wanting and to easily move into a state of changing beliefs, practices, and even thoughts about things. And so I had to like create my own systems for what does this mean in my life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think a lot of the times we just do things without understanding why we're doing something
Right.
or why this information came to us or why did I want to learn this because I was learning certain things and I think about when I got into my spirituality and I thought, wow, this is gonna free me so much.
Mm,
It's going to help me get away from my checklist. It's gonna help me get away from the outside world. But all that happened was my spirituality turned into a checklist. Did I get
mm,
this off today? Did I get this off today? Did I get this off today? Did I get this off today? It's like, oh my gosh, I'm not advancing as fast as I thought I could. You know what I mean? I kind of put it
mhm.
in a linear fashion,
Right.
and I thought to myself for a second, like, holy smokes, like, why am I out here competing with other spiritual people? This is for my coaches too, because I know you're out there and I know you guys are out there bringing in all the information you can. You think your business is not growing because you got to get the next best thing. And maybe you haven't done enough somatic breathing, or you didn't get acupuncture on your toe, or you didn't go fucking do an ayahuasca journey, whatever the fuck it is you believe that you got to do in order to get to the next level. But we're not
Right.
implementing the stuff that we're doing. And I think to myself, like, when did healing become a checklist? And why am I in competition with other people? Like, oh, haha, I healed, I did this, haha, I'm better than you. Oh, no, you didn't, because you know what I did. So this is what I heard. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, why are we
Right.
arguing about this stuff? And who says what's what? It's what works for you.
Right. Yeah.
And obviously, if we're having this debate over like spirituality, shit, none of us got anything out of the shit that we just read, out of any of the courses that we just took right now, because here we are arguing about like who makes the best fucking Kool-Aid or who has the
Right.
best car. But this is spirituality. This is when you say this, it comes from the inside and be able to sit with it. It's like, what does that even mean? Sit with the information. It's like part of me says wants to get this information and wants to go put it into play,
Right.
but to sit with it and actually be like, ooh, what does this mean to me? And how does this actually like integrate
Mhm.
into my being? That's like, nobody taught me that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think there's so much truth to what you're saying because I'll have conversations with other people. I think spirituality is an inward journey. I think each one of us is going to experience it uniquely different because we've had different experiences of life. And because we're working with the form, which is our brain and our nervous system, mine is different than yours. And so, what makes sense to you and the steps that you need to take to find peace, love, and peace, love, and happiness is going to, it may look a little bit different. And so one of the struggles, I don't know if the word is struggle, but one of the things that I always had a hard time with is I don't have a need to try to convince you what you should do based on what I have done. What I do is I share with you my experiences. You take what matters to you and you let go of or leave behind what doesn't matter to you. But what happens, just like in any other modality, any other learning experience, sometimes because we feel so strongly about our journey or what we believe in, we want to impose that onto others. And I think that happens a lot in the spiritual community. And what happens as well is like, I'm better than you because, oh, poor you, you just don't get it yet.
Or you just
I
started.
right, I'm more enlightened than you are. Like I don't
You're a
know that I
baby soul.
right. And I don't know that I've ever or that I'll ever use the word enlightened because when I think of enlightenment, I think of like Buddha, like I'm not there. I got all kinds of ups and downs in the experience of
Yeah.
my life.
I'm still having
What
ups and downs. Like, what?
Right. It really is like moment by moment. Like that's for me, it's about in this moment I feel aligned, I feel grounded, I feel connected to my highest self. 5 minutes from now I may not be because my kid might come in and say something and I might get irritated by something. It's like this constant state of trying to find that space of being, in alignment. And so there's no need for us to be like, oh, poor you, or I've done so much more work than you. That's an outward ego experience.
Yeah. And I still feel it coming on. So have you ever experienced spiritual burnout or anything of that nature? Like, can you
You
recollect
know,
a time or maybe on the border, or is this?
you have to remember I started this a long ass time ago. So when I first started, and you know this because I've shared my story with you, but I started when I was 18 when I left home. It started with my just personal healing that I wanted to live a better experience of life. I wanted to feel happiness. I was afraid that I was going to become my mom. That was my biggest motivator, was I wanted to be different than her because I saw her as this bitter woman who hated the world. And I didn't want to be that. And was in a relationship and I was afraid that I was going to lose that relationship with somebody who was actually a really decent human being. And that was my motivating factor. And so when I first started therapy, the very first book they gave me was Children of Alcoholics. My mom was not an alcoholic, but she went up and down the way people do when they have addictions. And so I started that. I was like 18 when I started the healing process. And this was before social media. This is before information was easily accessible. This is before we knew a whole lot about the nervous system. This was before we knew about a whole lot about quantum physics, or at least that information was not readily available to us. And so for me, the learning was reading books. And I started that healing journey and I had so much faith that it was going to be okay. So I had like this trickle experience throughout my entire life. There were dips that I had when I had darkness and depression, and I had to step away from all of that to just let myself experience the hard times, because there were lots of hard times. But we're talking a span of 30 years. And when you tell your story, it's like you're talking 6 years, right? You're like 6 years,
Yeah.
and I went full on. I was reading the books, and I was going to the workshops, and I was going to other countries, and
Yeah, like man, let me tell you, it was overwhelming. You know what I mean?
right,
Like the burnout. Like now that I look back at it, it was overwhelming. There was times where I felt like overwhelmed by my healing journey. Like, fuck, is this ever gonna end? And people like, no, this is the way it is. You have the dark night of the soul, and it's supposed to feel horrible. And I think I created that more for myself because I
right,
kept reading the books, I kept doing it. Like I got to keep hammering away instead of just being. Because
yeah,
I got resentful for some of these things. Like, fuck, I ain't meditated more. I still feel fucking anxiety anyway. So what the fuck I'm doing is fucking Buddha. Fuck you. You're lying. You know what I mean? But I
yeah,
think it's because I was comparing myself to others and what they were
right,
saying and not realizing that every experience is different.
yeah,
Because like I did go to fucking Peru, right? I did have this crazy experience where I was like, oh my gosh, like scared the fuck out of me. You know
hmm
what I mean? It was like
hmm
it was like anxiety attack on steroids.
yeah,
Then I got back, and then I went through a separation with a woman that I didn't want anything. What was the thing? There was no what was the word that I use? No, I can't think of the fucking word right now. Anyhow, we're just gonna have fun. You know what I mean? No expectations, right? But somehow through the process of this, my expectations did cling on, and so when she decided to leave because I
oh,
wasn't
you caught
fulfilling her
feelings? Is that what you're saying? You caught
yeah,
feelings?
yes. And I wasn't sharing that side of me.
Mm,
How could she know that I felt a certain way if I never expressed it? Because in the beginning, I said no expectations, but
right,
my expectations kind of grew. So that was my ego getting stomped on a little bit more. I was like, oh man, this shit feels horrible. I've been doing the work. Why does it fucking feel so shitty? This shit doesn't work. It's supposed to save me from this. I was like, fuck you,
yeah,
meditation. Fuck you, ayahuasca. Fuck you, books. You don't know what you're talking about because I'm in this shit right now. Well, I didn't take the time to actually implement it.
right,
I didn't change my behaviors through the process. I didn't open up and communicate clearly. It wasn't that the meditations wasn't working. It wasn't that the things and the tools, I just wasn't utilizing the tools properly. I was
yeah,
using them for the fact of feeding my ego. Like, yeah, I meditate 20 times a day. Ha ha. How many do you do? None. That's right, because I'm more enlightened than you. No, I'm not. Because I got my heart fucking stomped out and I feel like a
right,
little bitch right now.
yeah,
So I had to recognize that
mhm,
somehow. And I really don't know how I did. I think I recognized it because we had a lot of these conversations.
mhm,
We did other types of journeys and we did other types of challenges and whatnot. And I think I slowed down. I
mhm,
took advice from one of my MLM companies that I was in. You got to slow down to go fast.
yeah,
You got to slow down to go fast
yeah,
because spirituality was burning me out. I felt more fucking anxiety and more stressed out than I did at work. You know what I mean? It's like I go to work, I'm stressed out. I come home and I got all these courses that I got to take, and I'm like even more stressed out. Like I got to get this finished because if I don't, I'm gonna be left behind in the spiritual world. And then when the world splits off, I'm gonna be left here because I
mm.
didn't ascend into the 5D.
Basically, you just changed hell to like 3D, right?
Yeah,
You're not going to heaven, Mark.
yeah. I'm gonna be stuck here with the fucking sheeple.
Oh
Oh
my God,
man.
yeah. And there's lots of that conversation happening on, like on even on TikTok when you're on other social media where people are talking about you're gonna get left behind. What timeline are you gonna be on? Are you gonna be on the 3D or the 5D timeline?
Yeah, like what? Like it gets even more confusing and crazy. It's like, wait a minute, have I been doing this wrong? It's like, no, these are where we're taking old ideas and bringing them into this new age philosophy. Is we're
Mhm.
not changing anything. We just went from hustle and bustle to work to now we're going to put on spirituality and then we're going to sell you everything to be consumerism and then everybody's still going to be stressed out. Haha, jokes on you, motherfuckers. You
Yeah,
know, like and,
yeah.
and and I had to redefine. I had to go from shifting, right? I had to shift from the hustle of spirituality to the flow of spirituality or whatever it is you want to
Yeah,
call it.
no, I think that's a really good statement right there.
Yeah.
From the hustle of spirituality, because if you are naturally and I don't say naturally because none of us grow up, this isn't a natural way of being. This is what we've been taught. If you compare yourself to others, if you look at somebody who you work with that you feel is more enlightened than you, and you're comparing yourself to them, yeah, you're going to feel like you're not far enough. You don't know enough. You're not living that enough. And so that's never, ever like the motivation or the reason why you would delve deeper into your spiritual awareness. That's ego taking the lead. And ego's very tricky that way because it's for good reason, right? It's for good purpose. It's going to bring you to a better state of awareness and to align with the truth of who you are. But the one leading the charge is ego. The real journey is to learn to surrender, and
Mhm.
you get to have your own experience and somebody else gets to have their own experience, and you don't actually learn. What you're doing is, you don't actually grow. And I know this is hard for people to wrap their arms around, but I don't believe that we actually grow. I believe what we're doing is we're getting rid of the shit that gets in the way of our remembering.
Ooh, yes. I resonate with that, because some of this stuff is like, how did I know this? Like, how did I know just to do this? Or how did I know that this failed? You know what I mean? Like when I redefine my success for spirituality, I was trying to benchmark myself by how much I was doing
Right.
without realizing how I was feeling.
Yeah.
And when I pay attention to the deeper concepts, the real true nature of meditation is to feel into things. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And it shouldn't be making me 20 million freaking meditations a day and I'm still feeling stressed out. And
Right.
I was trying to calculate how successful I was going to be by how many I did versus one of them that could make me feel a lot more calmer, a lot more compassionate, a lot more soothed, a lot more aware of my being and of my shit that
Yeah.
I was trying to throw onto the spirituality realm, and I
Yeah.
wasn't making my shit simple. I started this journey with simple daily disciplines that helped my fat ass get thin, right?
Right.
Walking around the block 20 million times. Then I was jogging. Then I was in the gym. Then I was playing basketball. Simple daily disciplines. And
Mhm.
somehow I got away from that into my practice. It's like I understand how it worked. I did
Mhm.
it over here in this area, but somehow spirituality is different. So I need to shoot for the moon because 5D's right over there and I ain't getting left behind. Jesus is gonna
Right.
come, second coming, and I'm not gonna be the one of the 144,000 that gets to go and shit. You know what I mean?
No, Mark, here's where we fuck this all up. You are the second coming.
Oh, boom, shakalaka. You motherfuckers hear that? I am the second coming.
You are
And
the second coming.
and
I
so are
am the
you.
second
Yes.
coming. Yes. So Jesus is part, and this goes into A Course in Miracles, but we are part of the sonship. And the sonship means that Jesus is our brother, not something or someone above us. He just basically showed us the way that we can access the love of who we are, the truth of who we are. We are the second coming. And
Yes.
so there is nothing actually happening outside of me. It's all happening within me because we are still part of the oneness that is truth. And so this gets very, very woo woo and a little kind of confusing for people. But all this to say is that there will never be a mistake that you have made on your spiritual journey because your journey is your own sacred experience.
Mm.
The key is to stop looking outside yourself for validation and even comparison to others' journey, because there is no journey outside of your own.
Yes. Learn to embrace that shit. You know what I mean? Embrace it. Embrace more, do less.
Yeah.
Embrace more and do less. I think that's been helping me. I'm in a new spot in a new space, and I realized like because I was so enlightened, I thought I could be in a toxic environment and not get fucking the
Oh,
secondhand smoke from it, right? Because
yeah.
why? Because I got a shield. I'm fucking badass. I've been doing this shit for 5 years. The motherfucking toxic shit can't fuck with me. Oh yeah, it can. Yes, it can. But my ego was saying no, you got to force fill that strong as hell. It's not going to spill on over to you
Yeah.
because you are the light, you are the way, you are this, you are that, and you do your million meditations every single day, and you do this and that. And in reality, I had to learn to set the boundary. I wasn't allowing myself to say, "Hey, check this out. This is not working out anymore.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go my own way." But because I'm a people pleaser, right? We talked about this. Because I am a yes man, especially when it comes to family. You
Mhm.
don't want to create those confrontations. And all my training, all the million books that I read, all the million courses that I've taken, all my own coaching that I do for others, it went out the fucking door,
Mhm.
And I think I really don't know. Sometimes you just don't know. I had to take a step back, relax, embrace the change, allow it just to happen and say, okay, what in my life needs more attention and what have I not been paying attention to?
Mhm.
You know, I think that, because when something like that happens, you think to yourself, how can this happen to me?
Mhm.
I done the work. I got friends. I got a podcast. I got coaching clients that pay me hundreds, thousands of dollars sometimes to do certain things. And here I am feeling this way, you know?
Well, do you want me to tell you why, or are you just talking?
Yes, because there might be somebody out there that might feel the same way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was waiting for that. You want me to tell you why? Hey, if whoever's listening out here, Isel is about to be harsh on me. So whoever made that comment before.
No, it just means that you were ready for it now.
Yeah.
So what happens is, we have patterns, especially with family members and people that are close to us. We have patterns, this dance that we've created, right? And, if you tango together, you both have learned the tango that you've been doing for years and years and years. And so here comes Mark. Not only are you changing the music, right? Because energetically you've shifted. You probably have shifted, so your frequency is at a different level than the people that you were around. So your frequency is different, so you change the dance and you change the music, and people don't know what to do with that. And so what happens sometimes, especially in close relationships, is the other party will sometimes push and push and push to revert you back to what's most familiar. And what's hard is that emotions are contagious. So, and that energy is contagious. And I'm going to sidestep here to just describe this. So one of the things that I used to do was I used to take organizations and flip them. So I took shitty organizations and made them good organizations. And the way that I did that was I built these allies of people who believed in the same mission, who wanted to show up and do the work, who I taught people like how to support each other through the journey. And we would have one or two people that were like, we ain't doing this shit. This is stupid. I'm not going to buy, I'm not going to drink the Kool-Aid. We're not going to like celebrate each other. We're not going to do that. And it almost becomes like a cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we would hire new people, if that person leaned into this transformative experience of community and being with, if they leaned into that, they would jump on board over here. But if there was a little part of them that, like to talk shit or were familiar with backstabbing or being passive aggressive, or they had that undercurrent, they would glob on almost immediately to the one or two staff folks who were kind of stirring things up, who were unwilling to jump on board. And so what happens is that's what's familiar to them, right? And so what what I try to do is create a bigger experience of love, connection, community, belonging, all of those things, so that these folks wouldn't gain traction. And so it's real easy, depending on how we're raised in our experience, to get stuck in what's familiar. So in your situation, when you're with family members, you're in a situation that is familiar, number one, that may be toxic just historically. So you're trying to change the dance, but you're trying to do it alone. And
Yes.
so it's this oil and water that continues to mix because there isn't enough to, I want to say, because there's so much energy that you need to have in order to sustain your level of frequency, that you want to be in this space of being in alignment or being self-reflective or being vulnerable. Like, you can't be in that space and allow yourself to have that full experience. And so, the reason why it's happening for you right now is because you were ready for this next level of awareness.
Yeah, I was when I'm looking and I'm thinking about this because I understood, I felt it coming, and so I
Yeah.
was reading up on it and I was doing the what would you call it, the investigation into what I was going through, what I was feeling, and how to move through it. However, I wasn't implementing the things that I knew that I should, right? I was gaining all the knowledge, I was gaining all the information and stuff I already had known, especially because I do a lot of shadow work, but I wasn't embracing it very much, right? I was gaining the knowledge just to gain it, just so I could set it aside and allow the fumes to fan up, and I
Yeah.
wasn't setting the boundaries necessary in order to help my spirituality evolve, and
Yeah.
it was telling me because it was knocking at the door, but I wasn't listening,
Hmm.
and I think to myself, and I was like, and I kind of felt bad for a few days to myself, like, how did I let this happen?
Hmm.
How did I not see this? I should have known the first time something like this happened, but I allowed it a second time and it escalated. I was in, like, you know what I mean? Like an abusive relationship in a sense.
Hmm.
Um, but my I guess it's the ego or whatever it is, like you say, it's like, you could stick this out, you know what I mean? And I tried and I did it. And so I just think about when I reverse engineer my life and I'm looking at it now, we're having this conversation about spirituality and the burnout and like, shit, was this part of why I allowed this to get so far? Because I had attacked, not, I don't want to use the word attack, because I was going so hard and evolving and becoming enlightened that I thought I was untouchable. And
Hmm.
my burnout caught up with me because I stopped practicing and stopped utilizing and setting the boundaries like I would have if I would have been slowing down enough because I was going so fast. If I would have had really slowed down, utilized and implemented all the tools that I have had already, instead of trying to gain new ones and trying to seek out new scenarios of why things were happening the way it was and why they happened to me because I'm just the fucking greatest in the whole world, would things have been different?
I think you responded from a stress response. That was your stress response. Like,
Okay.
your history in your nervous system got activated. And the reason why you stayed in that situation is because it's probably a pattern that you have had in your life,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to family. Like, there are expectations and beliefs around family and the things that you should do and the things that and so you were probably not, rejection and fear of rejection and what's going to happen if you are rejected. It's scary. It's a scary experience. And I think it's very easy for us to intellectualize our spiritual understanding. And this pushed you in deeper into your emotional state. And so it really was. And I know it sucks when you're in it. It's hard when you're in it. And I promise you, as you move through this experience, if you allow yourself to just feel what's coming up for you and being with that, you'll be able to, when you get to the other side of this, you'll be able to reflect upon it and go, why did that show up for me? Like, what was the opportunity that was presented to me in this difficult moment in my life? And this is where we start to really embody it. And it may be that you were supposed to gather all this information. You were supposed to do all of that work for this to happen, and then you to be able to move through it.
Yeah, because when I look back, I think I forgot for a minute that spirituality and the things I'm want to accomplish or where I'm moving is a way of life and not a task to complete.
Yeah.
I think I was treating the situation like a task to complete. Like, oh my gosh, I am, you know what I mean? What do you call it? The triangle of disempowerment. I was being a
Mhm.
savior in a sense, you know what I mean? And then or the victim,
Mhm.
and it's like, wow. So I would encourage people that are out there listening and paying attention and really soaking in this information, because we touch on a lot when it comes to this kind of stuff. We take the hustle and bustle of the current lifestyles, and then we bring it into spirituality, and we utilize spirituality as a task to complete versus a way of life, and there's people out there say, well, spirituality is a 24/7 game. It's like, is it though? I mean, I think there's spiritual things happening 24/7, but if we're 24/7 on all the time in this one area, You know what I mean? Because we still have to be able to run through or go through life on other levels. We still have to show up to work. We still have to show up for kids if you have them. You still have to show up to strangers that are out in the park if you're walking your dog, right? We still have to show up to our significant others. You know what I mean? And I know
Mhm.
spirituality plays a part in all this, but if you're on 24/7, always constantly trying to shuffle through your head for the next best thing that's going to make the greatest experience possible instead of actually just having the fucking experience,
Mhm.
I think that's kind of how you get burnt out, you
I
know?
think I think the difference is, so I think what you're referring to, and correct me if I'm wrong, spiritual practices. So spiritual practices, like that might be learning, it might be meditation, it might be, breath work, it might be all of those things that become tools for us. But I think spirituality in its truest sense is a deep sense of knowing that we are divinely guided, protected, and loved. And that at the essence of truth, we are love, we are happiness, and we are peace. And so that's, for me, that's my aim. My aim is that I learn, I have systems and I have tools. Even me as a medium, I'm a tool. I help people, but even like I was using dowsing rods. I did some dowsing rods with
I
the,
saw
the
you
rod. Yeah,
like, it was
I
like 3 days
did.
ago. I told you I've been watching you.
Yeah, that's a tool, right? Where's my pendulum? I have pendulums here that I use. That's a tool. So there are tools that we use to help us get to this state of awareness. Now, my awareness of who I truly am, I want as an undercurrent in everything that I do. But what happens in this undercurrent of everything that I do, there are moments when I'm irritated because I can't find my keys. There are moments when it's like, I'm like, oh, I got to pay these damn bills. There are moments that we have to live this experience of life. The key is for me to be able to get back to the state of knowing, of just knowing. And I think we have to get out of the space of thinking as spirituality, as you mentioned, as a task, as
Yeah.
a to do, as a comparison to what other people are doing. There is your journey, your sacred journey is the divine journey, period. End of story.
Yeah, I think yeah, consistency over intensity. Like, oh, I'm gonna go harder in this. The next, like, well, you show up slowly and consistently. You're like the turtle. Like, the fucking turtle won the race. You know what I mean?
Right.
Metaphorically, and it's like, why? Because he just kind of moseyed along. You know what I mean? Um, and I think things will, because I know for myself, when I've focused on consistency and done is better than perfect, and when I didn't have to go as hard, like I know this now, and I still kind of like overstep this boundary. Is I understand that it's not, I don't have to work hard. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I could play smart and live free, but sometimes that part of me just thinks that if you just force it, or if you go hard, especially like when I'm trying to be creative, you know what I mean? I got
Mm.
these ideas I'm gonna get it done. Like, oh, it's not coming to me. Well, I know, and you relay this over a lot, is I'm at my best when I get out my way
Yeah.
and it's flowing and I become that tool. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I become that vessel. I become that thing that allows this creation to come into the earth. So I think it's a fun and it's a great process. And I think people out there listening right now, if you're not in your spiritual journey, or if you're just starting your spiritual journey, do you find yourself like overwhelmed by all the damn books that people are telling you got to read, and then they come back to you and say, hey, what did you learn? But you're only halfway through the book because you weren't consistent enough, and or you're just a slow reader like I am. And then you feel bad because you're like, wow, I'm not doing enough, I'm gonna get left behind. What's this 5D world? I want to go. Like, you think you got to read 20 books in order to get there. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You really don't. You could probably not read one fucking spiritual book in your life and still find a way to evolve into 5D or whatever the fuck they say. You know what I'm saying? Because I think,
Mhm.
like Missy Settler said, there's an inner knowing that
Mhm.
just knows and understands. And sometimes people find that without any outside fucking intervention at all. Like, you might not even hear anything that we've ever had to say on this planet because somebody's living in the jungle somewhere with no like internet access, and they're still going through these same processes because it's inside of them somehow, and they're learning it from the jaguar that's just roaming the jungle. They learned it from a fucking tree. You know what I mean? They learned it because they're watching ants. Like, wow, I wonder how they live so peaceful like this. And then it just connects to them intent with their intuition and shit. You know what I mean?
I have actually met people, random strangers kind of people. I have this weird thing that happens to me when I go to the store. Like, people will just come up to me and start sharing their life with me. Like, I'm literally getting lemons at the grocery store, and somebody comes up to me and just starts telling me that they're about to lose their house, and then like all of this stuff. And I can think of a few people that just come to mind that I didn't know before, I didn't know at all, but for whatever reason they approached me, and usually it's at the store, and it's like there's this connection that we have, and I can see their soul. And I can't even describe to you what this feels like, really, but it's like, here's this person that is a stranger to me in this lifetime, and I feel their genuineness. I feel their vulnerability. I feel I feel our connection. And even though they may not have worked through all their traumas and may have still baggage that they're carrying like the rest of us, there was something about them that I knew. And I'm thinking of this one particular gentleman. He was probably in his 70s, and he was struggling. He couldn't see what he was. It was part of the prescription he was putting in for his wife. She needed her medication, and I was at Target. And he came up to me, and he was asking me near tears because he couldn't make out with what was happening. And so I helped him decide. I read it to him. I wrote some stuff down with him. I went to the pharmacy with him. And there was something about him that I felt like he was closer to the state of full awareness and alignment. And I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know whether he was religious, if he was spiritual, if he was like, I knew nothing about him. But there was this beauty of this man that I felt in my body. And so he very well, could have never opened a book before in terms of spirituality, but I felt that presence within him. And so I think that, I think we all have a different path. And some of our paths are through trauma. And some of our paths is, from trauma to books to workshops. Some of our paths is really just being self-reflective and growing up in a nurturing environment where your parents are deeply reflective and want you to think about things from every which direction. We all have different paths. No path is better.
No path is better. So when I think about, and we're going to recap some of the things that we chatted with you guys about today, because I think it's important to reiterate some of the things. The spiritual grind can be just as harmful as the hustle and bustle culture. And I learned from experience that I took that same hustle and bustle culture and brought it into my spirituality. Healing doesn't have to be exhausting. I hear people say things like, oh man, it's just so exhausting. It's like, well, is it really though? Because how are you approaching it? And who's guiding you, who's teaching you, where are you getting your information from? And are you getting too much information instead of actually implementing it? Or are you just like, is your ego stopping you saying, no, don't do this because we want to stay the same? You know what I mean? I know there was a part of me that wanted to keep eating fucking my aunt's tortillas every time she brought me one, but I know I couldn't. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's okay to shift people from hustle to flow, but it just takes slowing down and becoming aware of how you feel, I think that's really important. It's not how much you accomplish and how much you're doing, but how are you feeling in the process? Because I could go to work now, and I used to think that I had to work 7 days a week to make the money that I needed to make to survive. But then I slowed down and said, hey, how can I get better at this? And when I go to work now, I slow down, I calm down, I'm more aware. And so now I only have to work 3 to 4 days to make that 6 days worth of pay, And the only thing that changed was how I approached it. I learned to slow down, listen to my guests a lot more, be more aware and be more present, and especially with my coworkers. And it made my experience that much more smoother at work. So I had to realize, like, wait a minute, It wasn't the environment. It was how I was showing up in this environment. And I think my spirituality and my journey for this is very, very similar on how I approach it, because it could either burn you out,
Yeah.
or it could energize you and elevate you to other levels of consciousness. What do you think,
Mhm.
Miss Isla?
Yeah. And I think another important point is that your journey really is your journey. We really
Yeah.
have to stop comparing ourselves to others. This happens a lot to me, actually, where especially because of my mediumship, and we can all to some degree connect to people who have crossed over. It's kind of like, I like to use this analogy. I haven't figured out a better one to use, but we can all learn art to some degree, right? Like, I can teach you skills to be able to draw a person. Like, I can teach you very specific skills about shadows, and like, I can teach you skills. And so we can all, to some degree, develop a skill set for art. And then there are others who just kind of naturally know how to do this. Or once they were given the skills, they run and they take off. There are some who have never taken a class in all their life, but man, they know how to do art like really, really well. That's kind of how I see our mediumship abilities. There are some people that come in and that can be taught, and it's a muscle. So the more you practice, the better you get, the more you can trust, the better you get. And then there are other people who just come in doing that work. And so what happens is I share how I connect to source, or how I connect to um, people who have transitioned, and they are expecting the same experience. So they're expecting to see the same thing, hear the same thing. This is my experience. It's not yours. So how it's going to show up for you is going to be unique to you. And that's why you got to do the inside work. And it happens so much because they're like, Isela, I'm doing everything you told me to do. And I'm like, yeah, well, I just gave you some tools. Like, it might work, it might not work. Like, the journey is just for you to figure out what works for you. And so we've got to stop comparing ourselves to others.
Definitely. I feel that, people watch us and they see us on Brown and Spiritual AF. They're like, wow, you guys are so dynamic. You guys are so amazing. I wish I could do it like that. And I give them some pointers, and then they go and they say, well, Mark, it's just not working. It's like, I don't really know how this happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, we get on here, we just talk about what's on our mind and what's on our feelings. A lot of it's not scripted at all. We got the ideas, and now we're doing our best to say, okay, what's going to be the topic? What's going to be the topic of next week? And we say we're going to put it in advance, but then it's like, okay, is it still this one? You know what I mean?
Mm.
But I find myself comparing myself to other people that they're doing things that I wish that I could do, and I'm like, fuck, you know what I mean? But then I think to myself, like, wait a minute, I'm having my own experience, and the way I do and the way I show up is going to be a little bit different because we're not
Yeah.
the same. So maybe I'm listening for the wrong thing. Maybe mine's not hearing, mine is the feeling, or maybe it's just that knowing inside.
Yeah.
So you have any last words for our people that are listening or watching?
Well, I would like to share with everyone that I am starting a 52-week journaling challenge in
Oh,
my I
shit.
Am Loved group, my Facebook community. I actually created a guide to go with this, a book that will be available on Amazon. Hopefully in the next 2 days or so. But what I did was I captured my entire process of how I move through the reflective lens. There's 4 different steps of reflection that I move through when I'm contemplating, thinking, or being curious about beliefs, behaviors. The way that I try to describe this is that, see, we can intellectualize our entire journey, but there's an undercurrent of beliefs that we are often completely unaware exist, and it shows up in most inopportune times. And so this journal, these prompts they feel random, but they're not. The first one is, when do you judge people most harshly? When do you judge people most harshly, and why? We often don't think about those questions unless we're in a situation where we're invited to reflect upon that. But especially culturally, we're in a constant state of judgment. Like, families come together to judge, friends come together and talk about people like we do. And so, why do we do that? Why do we do that? And do you want to change that? has that been helpful to you? Does that align with who you really want to be and who you truly are? And so this journaling process, I'm going to be dropping a prompt every Monday in my group, and I'm hoping that people will engage in dialogue, feel safe enough to be able to do that. And I'm hoping the book is where you'll find more of the prompts in that whole entire journey. But I really am trying to create a community where we can hold space for one another as we delve deeper into our personal awareness.
Whew, 52 weeks. You can go deep in 52 weeks. Yes, I know what it was like just doing like a 9-day challenge or a 21-day challenge of
It's
52
the
weeks.
entire year. It's the entire
Whew.
year. Yep.
Wow, that sounds amazing. I've been watching you and seeing the things that you've been doing and the those that you're connecting with and watching your communities. And I'm part of a few of the communities, and I try to hop in and out as much as I can. But I've been building a lot also on my end, right? I got my coaching packages up, so I'm like full blown going to be going coaching full time here pretty soon. I got
Awesome.
Sundays in the Shadows podcast coming up. That's something I've always wanted to do, but I thought to myself, I can't do this. I need Missy Sella on my side because she's what keeps me in check. You know what I mean? But it's like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, there's a way that I do this. I know I can show up and do it the way that I want to and need to, and really let go of that crutch sometimes, you know what I'm saying, of having a co-host and like just being in this amazing space. And like, if I fuck up, she got my back. You know what I mean? I got a lot of other products that I'm putting together, and it's all coming together. And it's like, wow, when I look and see where we were 3-4 years ago when we started this to where we're at now, it's like, oh shit, it's getting real for real now.
Yeah.
Like, and we're actually moving along. And a lot of people think overnight success happens overnight, but it's been years in the making. Like Missy Sala's been in this game for like 20 plus years. You know what I
Yeah, the
mean?
spiritual, yeah. Now I haven't been doing this
Yeah.
for that long. This is
No.
more recent for me, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's amazing. So thank you guys very much for tuning in to Brown and Spiritual AF. And we look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks on Monday. I don't know what Monday that is, but in 2 weeks, you'll get another episode. And yeah, thank you for tuning in, and have a great mother loving evening or afternoon or morning, wherever you're tuning in from.
We do have Nina. I don't know if Nina's still on with us, but she dropped a few comments. I think where she said it was relatable was when you were talking about trying to take in all the information. Nina has also more recently um, jumped on board. She's jumped both feet into her own personal growth and spiritual journey. And so I think she can relate to trying to get as much information information as she possibly can and apply it. And then she says, I wanted there to be an end when I first started too. And so, yeah, here's another comment she made. Love that. A way of life, not an end of the spiritual healing journey.
Yes, Nina, I've been watching you too, yo. I love what you're doing. I love what you're putting out there and how you're going about it. Because I met Nina around, you introduced her to me.
Yeah.
Then we interviewed her on a podcast, right? I believe
Yep.
so. And then I've been watching her ever since. And so it's dope, people. Like, this is how it works. You just connect and you watch people grow and you see the ups and the downs, and whoo, let's go. We all got to hop on a call here pretty soon.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really
Actually,
fun.
that would be fun.
Yeah, I think it'd be
Yeah.
really fun because I really enjoy. I always have to comment from the sidelines when you guys are in there, because I got a lot of comments when you guys are speaking because it's fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
you can totally jump on. Like if
yeah.
you're ever like available to jump on, you just jump on back into StreamYard and I can bring you on at any time.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of times you're like, hey, I'm always doing stuff and I'm out there, but like, yeah, if I one day when I am and I see it and I got my computer or whatever, I'll just hop on because
Yeah,
these
totally.
conversations are amazing and they're fun to watch, and they help me reflect a lot. You know what I mean? Because it's dope to see two powerful women doing their thing.
So just what Mark's referring to, if you're on here watching, because we do have some folks who are still watching us, Nina and I do a daily, although we won't be there tomorrow, most daily.
And they're supposed to be short.
It was supposed to be 20 minutes. Like it's been an hour every single time.
Yes.
It's supposed to be 20 minutes, but Nina and I jump on at 12:30 Central Time. And so for me, it's 11:30. Pacific time is 10:30. We jump on and we have topics every day, and we're just talking the way Mark and I are talking here. Everything from, well, what we try to do is bridge the worlds of personal development and healing and spirituality. So, yeah.
And today was 4 agreements.
Yes, the first 2.
Yes. Oh yeah, the first 2. Like, we just went through 1. I was like, well, this is supposed to be short. I was like, shit, I gotta go. It's not personal, but I gotta go.
Yeah, we've got to figure out how to shorten them.
Yeah, put a timer on. I'll be the referee, and they're like, hey, we gotta go.
Gotta go.
We gotta go. But once again, thank you guys very much for tuning in. Everybody that's on Facebook, Instagram, on YouTube, stay tuned because we got a lot of amazing stuff coming, and we're going to keep you guys updated as we continue to pump a lot of our products out into the world so it can help you go within so you can find what works for you in your healing journey. Thank you very much for tuning in. Love ya.